Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Tim Gillette Show. I am Tim Gillette, your host. And just like I promise you every time we do this, I'm bringing you one of the coolest people on the planet. Number one, it's because they're world changers. All right. They're out there doing cool things that change the planet. Maybe a business, maybe a coaching business, maybe a product or service. Today's guest, I really know very little about today's guest. This is what I love about my show. I get to interview them, and it's like I get to have a one-on-one and record it, and you get to watch it too. So you also get to see me screw up, all right? You get to see me have a lot of fun doing it, but we really find out some interesting things about these people. So today's guest, Helena, all right? I'm going to get to meet her here just like you. Are you ready, guys? Here we go. Helena, how are you?
I am doing well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. So, I know that's probably not the best introduction you've ever heard, but hey, I try to have fun.
Hey.
Yeah. We can do a show though too, where I can just be very calm and quiet. Yeah, that's never going to happen. So, Helena, all right. First of all, where are you calling in from today? I don't even know what part of the world you're in.
I'm in the Pacific Northwest, right outside of Portland on the Vancouver, Washington side.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I have a good friend up there in the Portland area. She's been on a lot of my stuff. Jenny Wren. I don't know if you know her. She's in the podcasting space.
Not yet.
Yeah, she's been speaking at my events and stuff. Great friend. She's one of the few people I know in Portland personally.
How about you? Where are you from?
I'm in Dallas, Texas right now.
Oh, okay.
So I've been through Portland once in my life. Oregon was not my favorite state, although it did have some of my favorite scenery.
Why didn't you like it here?
The number one thing I did not like about Oregon is I rode motorcycle through it, and they want to pump my gas. And I'm like, dude, right. I've got a $50,000 motorcycle. You ain't getting near it.
Yeah, that's upsetting.
Yeah. If I had a car, I could care less.
Yeah.
But I had a customized motorcycle at the time, and I'm like, dude, you are not getting near my bike with a gas pump.
Yeah, I think Oregon and New Jersey are the lone holdouts on that,
yep.
Right?
Oregon and New Jersey, yeah. And it was a great idea. I mean, I worked, as a kid, I worked full service at a gas station, and I was the guy pumping gas. And I remember motorcycles coming in, and I would hand the pump to them. I would never do it. I would never, it's.
Right.
And I didn't understand it until I owned the motorcycle and realized, okay, anyway.
Yeah.
So how long have you been in the Oregon, all right, Portland and up the Pacific Northwest?
So I've been here since 95. I moved out here when I was 19. And I got married to a man from out here when I was 19. That's kind of like part of my history is that I was raised in a fundamentalist religious cult. Where you get married when you're little and you just have as many babies as God gives you. So that's what I tried that for a minute. Didn't work out well for me, but I did have 4 kids by the time I was 25. And
well, I mean, the greatest part I've always said about kids was the making them part. I hope you enjoyed that part of it anyway. Yeah. Because you pay for it for years. Yeah. I'm still paying. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Even when they're grown up, they still have needs, right?
Yeah. But it is great. My youngest stepson turns 30 years old this month. And I made this very special present for him. And being sick this week, they came over to pick up some stuff. Him and his girlfriend, they're taking a road trip. They want to borrow some of our stuff. And he's like, oh, you're sick. So like I stayed away from him. And he's like, you're sick. Can we go to the store and get you anything? I'm like, I love a bottle of Gatorade. I mean, literally jumps in the car, runs to the store. I'm like, here, no more money. No, I don't want money from you. I'll take care of it. You're my stepdad. Yeah. I'll take care of it, So, I mean, it has its rewards.
Yeah. Yes. My kids also are very good support people in my business as well. My daughter did my website and my other daughter is doing some support for me. So.
So, and so you've been up there since 95. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Minnesota.
Feeling California, but feeling Minnesota. You know that song? You know what it's from? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I have a very close friend lives in Minnesota and Minneapolis, St. Paul area. And I, as well as I have another friend, is online friend. I've only interviewed her. We've never met in person, but one of my good friends in the speaking world and training in like social media, like me, lives. When I met him, he lived in Denver, but he lives in Minnesota. He moved up there to take care of his dad till his dad died. And,
Mhm.
you know, and till this day, we're still good
Yeah.
friends. 11 years later, we still talk all the time. But
Yeah.
man, I couldn't stand living there at the cold.
Yeah, and I just got back from a trip there, and the thing about the summer is that the bugs are fierce.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's intense.
So, I mean, but you know, here in Texas, all right, we've got it's summertime. This is the part
Mhm.
about Texas I don't like is the
Mhm.
110-degree summers. Yeah.
Yeah, so I used to work for a Dallas-based company, and I spent some time down there, so
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So now that you're
mhm.
out there since '95, you're in the Northwest. All right. You went out there to get married. All right. Did you start a job out there, or was it just going out there to raise a family?
Well, I mean, I was a nursing assistant, you know, I was a child, and then
Hmm.
I started having babies, and I stayed home with my kids for, gosh, over a decade.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and then once I left the marriage, I started kind of with this career path uh, saga. So I first started out as a financial advisor. I worked at a credit union for a while, and then you'll remember 2007 and 2008 weren't like optimal years to
Not to
be
be in
financial
finances. No,
advisors.
there were optimal years to buy real estate. I'm just
Mhm.
saying.
That is true. There's that.
That's where I started a real estate company at the bottom of the market.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Good for you. Yeah, that you were the one that bought at the right time, right?
Yep. 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 Yeah.
But yeah, and I was also in the process of getting divorced during that time, so that was a rough, rugged couple of years for me. I ended
Hmm.
up going back to school and getting my degree in computer science.
Okay. Okay.
And
Yeah.
so I did that. I graduated in 2014, started working as a software engineer, and then this latest transition in 2019 to 2020 has been moving into the support of others phase of my
Hmm.
life,
Yeah.
especially recognizing as 2000. So coming out of 2019, I had done like so much therapy. I have been in therapy for 15 years and just wasn't making as much progress as I would hope to be making.
Hmm. Hmm.
I was still, having insomnia and anxiety all the time and a lot of other things. And I just decided to throw money at the problem. So beginning of 2020, I put my flag in the sand. This is going to be the year of the health.
Hmm.
I did psychedelic therapy, I did hypnotherapy, I did functional medicine to deal with my physical body. I did all types of like energy heal, whatever I could find. I like signed up and just was like suspend the disbelief and do it.
Hmm. Hmm.
And what happened was I started kind of putting the pieces together and really started studying polyvagal theory and neuroscience and, broke up with alcohol. I just did a lot of things. And all of a sudden, as the mental health crisis was coming out of through the pandemic, I was just doing better and better. And I thought, we're we're going to be in trouble. And I've got some answers that I'm
Yeah, yeah.
putting
We're gonna be in
together here.
trouble. I better do something about what I know with it to help. Yeah, I
Exactly.
love that. Yeah, yeah. So,
Exactly.
and it's interesting that you said, I mean, you were in it for 15 years. You went through the system.
Mhm.
I was telling my guest yesterday about, I mean, I went in 2004 timeframe. I went through this life enrichment seminar, and when I went through it, I got pieces to help me, right?
Mhm.
But I went back as a facilitator to help serve for almost a
Mhm.
year, and I worked, and I got more going back
Mhm.
to help others.
Right.
And then, I mean, like I'm watching them go through it,
Mhm.
and when you're facilitating one of those things, all right, they're going through the exercises,
Mhm.
and sometimes you've got a moment that you can grab a side chair and close your eyes and go through it yourself again, right?
Sure.
And it's like it reminded me of that with you
Mhm.
going, okay, well, maybe you found some of it while I went through it,
Mhm.
and some of it is I got to help others in order to
Yeah.
take the final step. Yeah.
Yeah, so what I discovered was that there are parts of therapy like, I really needed therapy. I mean, I didn't know anything about boundaries, I didn't know anything about attachment, I didn't know anything about healthy relationships, I didn't know so the parts of therapy that I went through were extremely important. I had an excellent therapist, but what happened was I was only really addressing the cognitive mind, and the nervous system and the subconscious mind are the bottom parts of the iceberg. The conscious mind and all of the behavioral changes and all that stuff is really just the tip of the iceberg. And so I really feel like I was trying to like turn a ship with a kayak paddle,
Mhm.
and really addressing the somatic pieces, the body, the nervous system, and the subconscious mind, those were the pieces that started to get together. And then with the psychedelic therapy, what I was able to do is actually go and start doing repairs on myself. I have no idea how this works, but repairing my psyche that in a way that I'm not sure how I would have gotten to it, access to it any other way.
And it's interesting. You studied so many different ways. Did each one of those ways you studied just like take one more piece in the puzzle? Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm still, I'm reading all of the time and finding all these pieces. And the one thing that I've kind of put together as far as my core program is like, I start with nervous system, then I look at subconscious, and then I look at energetics, and those three pieces together, by the time you kind of get those situated and you really start to feel safe in your body and safe in your environment, you almost don't even need mindset. Mindset is like an afterthought, like a cherry on the cake. Like you've already turned the ship.
Yeah. And it's funny. I mean, the word mindset has always been a woo-woo word to me. All right. I know it's very serious, right? And I was on actor Dean Cain's podcast, and he asked me about what's my mindset. I'm like, Dean, that's a woo-woo word to me. And he's like, what do you mean woo-woo word? I'm like, for me, my mindset was always my dad telling me, go do it. And you got up and did it. Right? That's mindset. You got up and did it. So my mindset has always been, don't think about it, do it.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not that it wasn't a thing. That's been my mindset. Stop thinking about it, get up and do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. Which is actually very culturally appropriate, right? We have this whole idea that like being resilient, and that's what my podcast is about, stories of resilience. And people think resilience means just like pushing through everything that's thrown at you. And that's actually not true. Being resilient is being able to be safe in your body, know what's enough and too much for you, make sure your nervous system isn't being taxed in, over survival mode, which is what most people are at this point, especially in the pandemic. And so being resilient means being flexible and moving with things and not just, standing firm and pushing through and sucking it up and, time heals all and all the things.
So pretty much you started down this journey and helping people during the pandemic, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So like while the rest of the world's sitting down waiting to go back to work, you're like, dude, I'm stepping up and I'm going to start a business, a podcast, right? Right. That's not the mindset of the rest of the world. They were all like, oh, in fear, and you're stepping out and fixing things. I love it. So tell me how you did it. All right. Virtually, did you start reaching out? Did you have a network of people? How'd you start it?
Well, I mean, I had collected a network of healers, right, through my own healing journey, and started to meet different people in the community. I have a friend who is a very, very excellent branding consultant. So I started working with her, and I was like, hey, I have these ideas. And, it's at the beginning, it's just a stream of consciousness. And so she's like, oh, it sounds like you're doing this and you're putting this together. And so she made me, a really great brand guide and place to start. Throughout the time, I think what happens is as soon as you want to step into something, you start finding the right people. The universe starts putting the people in place. And so I found some great like DEI consultants that are really good at business as well. And they started meeting with them every month. And that's one of the other things that I really discovered that I wished I had learned earlier. And I've told my kids, it's like, find coaches, find people who are where you are, and have them tell you how they got there. And so I really started doing that. And then, of course, as you know, once you get a podcast, it's like having a pool. Everyone wants in.
Yes.
So I kind of threw out the net in some communities, and because I had been working with my DEI consultants that helped me kind of really define and hone in on my values first, which is what I really recommend people who are starting a business do. The people who respond to my calls to action are very well aligned. And so even last night, I had a podcast prep interview, and I was just blown away by how this guy in a small town in Texas, who's a dentist, is basically had the same journey that I had, in so many ways, and has discovered the same tools and modalities, and, is going to come on my show and talk about, how dentists are struggling and how he's going to now start his practice and supporting them. So yeah, it's been an amazing ride. And throughout this, then also, I'm also starting a community, which is going to be a network for people to be able to come in and find healers that are appropriate to whatever they're struggling with, whether it's sexuality or finance and these kind of things. Because I realized through it as well that my approach to finding someone, like, say, for example, hypnotherapy, it's like, how do I find a hypnotherapist? Go to the Google hypnotherapy, Vancouver, Washington, what comes up? Then I try, so it's like really finding these folks that are going to be part of your treatment plan for, searching down this path is kind of hard right now. And so we're starting a community that's going to support folks.
Well, I mean, and it's, it's interesting. I mean, when we think about some of these issues, the thing I need healing from is getting old. I don't know if you've got a healer for that. I'm interested, but no, it's so many of us are like, okay, how do I search for this? And it's one of the things why we help people with the online stuff and tell people about getting the right keywords in your website so people understand how to find you. All right. But communities. All right. You know what I mean? I don't get everybody's so big on it. And I teach blogging. Everybody's so big on, like, well, you got to have the right keywords so people can SEO search for you. I'm like, 90% of my clients don't come because they found my website one day and went, oh, I'm going to hire this guy. No, they met me personally someplace through a community by someone who introduced us.
Yep. They heard you talking and they were like, oh, that, and every single person that I've found, I've had, some type of interaction where they taught me a thing or two. And then once I realized that they had some things to teach me, I was the one reaching out to them.
Yeah. Well, and that's it. I mean, I can imagine this. I mean, I get searching to find stuff for my business online and searching for it. But the personal healing, I'm dealing with sexual assault, all right, or sexual abuse or something like that. I don't know as though I want to type that into Google right now.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Especially with the privacy issues and all of that. But even like, as far as like sexuality healers, there's, so I've run into intimacy coaches, and then there's like somatic sex educators that do body work, and they're what they do is very different. And so one person might even find something on Google and like not even know who they're talking to. And so having a community, like you said, available where you can kind of get to know what someone does before you actually exchange, fees or whatever with them, or even try them out. And another thing people don't realize is, like, just because someone's a good therapist doesn't mean they're the right therapist for you. Just because someone's a good coach doesn't mean you're going to connect with them. You have to, it's just like any other relationship. You have to be friends. You have to have some type of camaraderie or some type of rapport, or else it's not going to work for you, regardless of how amazing of skills that they have.
Yeah. I personally have a client, all right, who is very well known in her industry, like, on TV, known in her industry, and has gone through, I'm not going to say who it is, but has gone through marketing coaches, like top marketing coaches, top speaking coaches, and then eventually came to me, and I was the person who was able to help her. And everybody's like, well, why can't Tony Robbins help? Tony Robbins may not be my cup of tea.
Right.
You know what I mean? I personally knew Zig Ziglar as a friend, but Zig Ziglar never coached me.
Right.
Zig was a friend to me, not a coach.
Yeah.
We can go off of the famous names, but sometimes, all right, to find who I need, all right, Helena, I've got to come into your meeting, all right, into a safe space and talk to people. Right. Maybe that safe space is on a Zoom call. I don't know. I mean, tell me some of the things how you're doing that to get them into the safe spaces right now.
Yeah. So right now, the Mighty Networks community is under construction. So we're going to be creating that. I'm actually working with the mentors. I just did a kickoff call last week to kind of get everyone on the same page and again, like, set expectations on values and things like that. Right now I have a, what I like to call it a chemistry call that I do with folks to just say, hey, like, where are you? and I explain to them what the difference is between coaching and therapy. And we talk about which one is appropriate for where they are. If I have a mentor that's more appropriate for whatever thing they're struggling with, I'll refer them to them. So it's just really like a conversation like you and I are having. It's saying, hey, and, vice versa. Like I might not connect with that person, right? So as a coach, I have to also be prepared to say, this doesn't feel like a good fit for me right now. But I'd love to help you, help support you to find someone who is, or, a lot of people just really need a good trauma therapist, and they need support in figuring out how to find them, which is a little bit challenging because everyone has to be in their local domain, with the therapy certifications and things. So what I put together is a little PDF that folks can request on my website about how to find a therapist. If
I think that would be one of the most valuable things, because everybody is out there going, well, you don't want to, that's one place that you don't always want to stick your toe in every water out there to find the right one. You probably want to have a guide on how to search the right person.
You definitely don't, but you do want to be willing to stick your toe in a few waters, right?
Yeah.
You do want to be willing to just not stick with the first one you went to just because you don't want to tell them no, or you're too scared to fire your therapist. And so
but also, isn't it along the lines of if trust is one of the things you got to heal from? If you got to heal from trust issues, man, and that's not like, you really don't want to go try out everybody. You want to talk to someone like you to center down to, okay, this is issue that you've got. All right, let's get somebody that we can build that trust again. Right?
Sure. Absolutely. And that's a very if someone sees me, that's why I just call it a chemistry call on my webpage, because someone sees me and they're interested in, learning more about a topic I've talked about. Maybe it's not something that's in my purview. I don't administer psychedelics. Like that's not something I do. I do have conversations about that. So if people want more information about that, maybe they just book a call with me. We chat for 30 minutes and then, that's it. There's no pressure to have any type of relationship with me, because I feel the same way. As like, you have to have the trust relationship, and there has to be a good fit there.
Cool. Which brings me into this, because this sounds like, you created this during the pandemic. You started doing this. You found ways to connect with people. All right. You've got the coaches in place. Is this the first time you've ever created a business of your own?
That's a question. That's a good question. Not exactly. I mean, earlier in my life, I did, I wouldn't even call it graphic design, but like desktop publishing. So I had some people that, would have me do their brochures for this, or posters for that. So it was a pretty informal business, but it was, I went through all of the steps of like creating a business license. This is certainly the first time I've created an online business, and that I've, come up with a scalability strategy and things like that, like are a little bit more evolved than just kind of a mom and pop shop situation.
So, and on your podcast now, are you interviewing people, or are you giving tips, or are you, what's the structure of your podcast now?
That's a great question. My podcast is called Sisu Journey. So Sisu is a Finnish word that is a mindset word. That means like extraordinary resilience in the face of extreme adversity. And so my tagline is science and stories of resilience. So I try to talk about things that are evidence-based modalities, and provide some science behind them if there's some available, as well as interview people about their stories of resilience. The objective is to get a lot of diverse stories from a lot of different places, create a container where they can come on and tell their story, whatever part of the story that they choose to share, and really give support for folks who might be going through the same thing. And I've had people on my, I had the director of Trans in Trumpland come on my show and talk about his journey of being a trans man and creating a docuseries about it. I've had people with obsessive compulsive disorder or, bipolar disorder or different, neurodivergencies come on and talk about their experiences. I've had different people with religious trauma, sexual trauma, people who've done plant medicine work and found some really good healing. And, I had my therapist come on and talk about her journey of healing. So it's just really kind of a wide variety of folks who've, been through some stuff and have found some answers and are willing to share their stories with other people, what they wish they had known, and what tools and modalities they've used to support them in their healing and growth.
Okay, cool. So, and when you started this, did you start the podcast first, or did you start reaching out to people to start the community first?
I started the podcast first.
Okay.
The podcast, the community is almost like a child of the podcast.
Yeah. Which usually it's the content show that we create. Like, you know what I mean? Like this is a live stream show, which becomes a podcast, but usually it's the, the show or the blog or something that creates the community, and it's so, yeah. 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 Well, along this journey though, you move to another state. All right. You change your world in that other state. Is there any point in time in your life that you thought, well, let me move back to where I came from?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
You mentioned the winters in Minnesota, and I grew up, the religion that I grew up in, I was required to wear dresses every day, which enhances the hatred of the winter situation. Yeah. And so the only thing that I've ever considered moving is somewhere where it's warmer than where I am right now, not somewhere where it's colder. But we have to wait till all of our kids are grown up. My partner has a 12-year-old son, so it'll be a minute.
Just a little bit there for you. I just curious because that's what people ask me a lot of times. I left originally. I was born in Pennsylvania, Scranton area, and then I left in my early 20s, and I lived in New England for 2 years. Then I moved back, and then when my first wife and I, when we got divorced, we were living in the town she grew up in, not the town I grew up in Pennsylvania. And I was like, that's it. I've wanted to move for years. I don't want to stay here. You're not in my life anymore. I'm not staying here. Bye. And I accepted a job in California, but came to Texas and stayed. Right. Now, 2004, 5, I sold a business in 2004, late 2005. By 2005, I was homeless and broke. And it was like, well, you're going to go back home to Pennsylvania. I'm like, no, I left for a reason. I'm not going back. All right. And and that's why I asked that question. Have you ever thought about that? Because your world really has changed.
Yeah. I would suspect that my answer would be very different if I had a different family system that was more supportive. Like when I got divorced, if I would have had some place to go that would have been more supportive. But I came from an extreme religion where during my divorce time, they were not fans of what was happening. And so there really wasn't any support financially or emotionally or with the children. So I was really on my own, regardless of whether I was in Minnesota or here. But I'm sure that would have been different if I would have had that option.
Well, that in itself could be a trauma creating situation for many people, because you know what I mean. Now, I grew up in a Christian home, but my father was divorced before what I mean, before he married my mom. So it's not like divorce was a sin, but it wasn't like, okay, we get it. Life doesn't happen perfectly. Right. That's part of, we're in a sinful world. But some of these religions that are just like so on, you don't have this, you don't do this, you don't do that. And I guess that's the area you were in.
Right. Yeah. Right. And particularly being a woman, it wasn't within my purview of decisions that were on the allowed list.
So, and it's funny, I seen that, and I when I was getting ready to go through my divorce, I was scared to tell my dad. I really was, because I didn't want to disappoint my dad or my mom. And when I told my dad gave me the, what I mean? Oh, okay, good. Let her go. Move on. It's okay. You know what I mean? And I expected dad to go, you need to work this out. I really expected that. And I found my father to be much more, even though he has not always liked my choices in life, to be supportive and go, okay, it's your life. You can make a great out of it, or you can screw it up. I'm not, my hands came off at 18, type deal. And I try to be that with my kids, and I'm sure that now how you were raised is are influencing how you're raising your kids.
Sure. I mean, I think a lot of the work I've done also influences how I've raised my kids, but certainly when they were younger, I mean, I really didn't have a lot of tools. You don't have a lot of tools other than what you're given, right? So you see those examples. And, you feel like we were raised, children should be seen and not heard, effectively. Like, this is, these kids are supposed to respect these adults, and so I have some regrets from when my kids were younger about being too hard on them.
Yeah.
But
well, I think my dad was hard on me in certain areas. All right. And it grounded me. If he was hard on me all the way up till I was 20 years old, it would have been different. But no, it was when I was younger. And I think about it like, I have 2 cats in the house that are kittens, basically. They're like less than a year old type cats. And we have a back patio. But part of the agreement when we adopted was we're not letting them outside. So we only let them on the patio. And last night, or 2 nights ago, one of them decided to try to jump on the fence. And I mean, out there trying to squirt her and get her down and everything's like, I'm like, that's mean to my cat. And I'm like, no, I've got to teach him while he's young. This is the boundary. You've got, I mean, but as he grows up, I'm going to be more lax with that boundary. You know what I mean? And I think that's what my dad had in mind. All right. When I'm little, I didn't view it that way. When I'm little, I thought he was a mean old man, but anyway.
Yeah.
But I find though, as I had a kid who then had a teenage kid, and now I have adult kids, and all 3 of my kids are now over 30. My perspective on things has changed quite a bit.
Yeah.
Has your family, all right, do you even talk with your parents or family anymore? Has their perspectives changed?
Well, I mean, I think we went through a period of time where they realized that level of control that they were trying to, have over my life wasn't no longer going to work. So they were going to have to figure something else out. And I think that what that something else looks like is still under the definition process. For a season, I didn't see them at all. Recently, I just went back there for a trip, like I mentioned, but the interactions are somewhat limited and cordial, but there's
damage that has to be healed yet. Yeah.
There's some work to do there for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Because it's always unique. All right. Like, you know what I mean? I've gone through outs with my parents and you know what I mean? It's sooner or later we came back. I have promised never to be mean to my kids ever. All right. Especially now that they're adults, and some things they do, I don't necessarily approve of, but it's
sure.
It's between them and God now, but not between them and me anymore.
Yeah. They have to figure that out.
Yeah, they do. I had to figure it out when I turned 18, and I had to screw up a lot. And I do mean a lot in my 20s. But that's part of the process in growing. So interesting. I always go back and I ask a lot of my guests when they come on this question. When I was younger, I worked a part-time job that I got job advice from the owner one day over a situation that turned into life advice. All right. It's something that still sticks with me to this day. And that was basically, I was having a problem with the job. And he told me to run my shift like I owned the company. Because of that, I learned to take ownership of everything I do in my life. Goods, bads, failures. Has someone given you advice when you were younger that is like, you know what I mean? It might not have meant to be. This is life advice. It's like, you know what I mean? No, this is just, how to get through the next 10 minutes. And it turned out to be life advice.
Yeah, there's a number of things that come to mind. One, usually they're just kind of like mantras that stick in your mind, right? So one of the things that someone told me at some point was, poor planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on my part. I have used that so many times in my life when someone comes to me and it's 5:00 on Friday and they want something done right now. And I'm like, And then another one is actually that, to choose a mantra. So like when someone is having this conversation where they're going off the rails, they're losing their, cool, choose something that you just kind of, a point that you're trying to make that's just going over their head, and just repeat it so that you're not engaging into the spinning out conversation. You're staying calm, because as soon as you start engaging, then everything goes to heck, right? So, that's one of the things that I often see people get really triggered in their whatever their situation is, and just start kind of, cooler heads can prevail if you just kind of pick a mantra and say it over and over again. To just,
well, I was thinking, if you get hot headed over stuff, number one, turn off the news.
that's 100% true. Yeah, we have a real problem with that. I was reading something that said that one of the problems that we have with the news is, or one of the things that our neurology has with the news, is that it goes from really happy things to really horrible things.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not meant to consume that kind of vacillation of emotional energy just right in a row. And so it kind of creates this, dissonance in our brain when we're trying to ingest that. But yeah, I would say turn off the news could be just a good life advice.
That's probably the greatest life advice. If it's got 3 letters, don't listen to it. Anyway, my personal philosophy, no, I don't. I turned off a lot, especially over the last 7-8 years. All right. It's just gotten so horrible that I just don't want to deal with it anymore. And I really don't want to hear your opinion on it.
Yeah.
All right. I catch my news on what matters to me in social media. And even like my mom's lives here by us now, but she drove to Pennsylvania to visit family for a couple of days. And she texted me or called me yesterday and said, so what happened down there? And I'm like, I don't know what happened. What do you mean? She's, well, there was a shooting at the Kroger. And I'm like, there was? Like, I didn't know, right? So I had to go look at it. And it's like, and I wrote it back in 10 minutes. I'm like, yeah. So some guy was fighting with his wife and a police officer came up and he pulled his gun out. Nobody was hurt.
Yeah.
I had to go look it up because I don't follow that to be able to catch it.
Yeah.
My mom's generation, they still watch all that.
Right. Yeah. I've been enjoying ingesting like long form, like journalism, podcasts, things like that are a little bit more complete and give you a little bit more context on something I'm interested in.
Yeah. Well, I want to keep my day at peace. So like I used to have on the TV, I have a TV in my office. I used to have it always playing like financial news. And then I would basically, watch, I'd see something come up. I'd turn the volume up real quick and then listen to the cast or that segment and maybe adjust something in my investments. Right. Until until they got political. And I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm watching this to know whether I need to buy more stocks in Hershey or sell my stocks in Procter & Gamble. I'm not watching this for the crap going on in the world. All right. And that's where I was like, okay. And then my wife's like, well, you spent all that money to wire a TV up in your office. What do you do with it now? I said, I put on old movies and I just let them play.
Cat TV.
In the old days I had automotive businesses until 2004. And then when I was in Pennsylvania, I had an auto business that had a TV into it that played back when MTV played videos. And I just basically had playing music videos all day. And that was the soundtrack in the shop. Right. And it was just a radio that had a TV screen if you were sitting in the waiting room.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it's funny how we turn that off, and that could be that in itself can cause trauma.
Right. Yeah. So a story that came to mind while you were saying that is, so I was telling you about 2007, 2008, when my life was very challenging. And at one point I ended up in the hospital. I had tachycardia, which is just a really fast heart rate. And they couldn't figure out what it was for. But now looking back with what I know now, I'm like, they didn't really say anything about stress. They did say something about stress, but almost like it was in my head because of stress, not really like You should meditate. And while I was in the hospital, I actually had the financial news up because, that was my job. And if I was now to go into a room with somebody going through what I'd been going through, I'd be like, first thing you do is turn that off.
Yeah.
The second thing you do is like learn these other skills about how to regulate your nervous system instead of, we got to get you sleeping. We got, all these things that they didn't even come up.
Yeah. So I have this whole mood thing that I use to correct mine. I didn't do it today and this week, basically, because my schedule was and I wasn't feeling well. But like before I come on a podcast, I have this routine of playing on YouTube videos, 3 Styx songs that pump me up, and I come on all happy and go lucky when I do it, because I mean, you think about it, that's something that encourages me. It lifts my spirit up. Now I come on, you're like, oh, Tim's this happy-go-lucky guy. Well, no, it takes work, and I just found a way to motivate myself to make it work.
Yeah, I also listen to certain music before I do interviews.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, it's just it's a my coach always said, put music into your life. All right. Of course, he worked in the music industry. As a matter of fact, he's at Lollapalooza. His son's playing a band at Lollapalooza tonight. So yeah, it's like, he's in music himself. But anyway, he said, put music in your life. It'll change your world.
Yeah. Have you seen that episode of The Office where Dwight's in the car, like getting self pumped up for a sales call? I forget which song.
I don't remember, but I remember. Yeah, I remember the episode. I remember, but I don't remember the episode.
Something like Eye of the Tiger or whatever.
Yeah. So I had a weird playlist for the longest time that I used to play. I used to get up to before my system in my house. I used to be able to choose the music, and it would come from my playlist on my phone. Now that part of the app doesn't work anymore. But I used to get on in the morning to Right Here, Right Now from Van Halen. That was my morning wake up song. You know what I mean? And then now we just play like a music channel to go to sleep. And I have a music channel that wakes me up and stuff like that.
Yeah. I see a common thread in your era of music choices.
Yeah. You think I'm into the 70s and 80s rock and roll just a little bit, huh? Yeah. And that is news that I did find out. And I was just talking about it. I do a podcast with a friend of mine at noon on Fridays. And we did it a couple hours ago. And we were talking about this very thing of like, musicians, because it's something I'm into, and all the musicians that have passed in the month of July. And I'm like, what the heck, is God putting together some awesome orchestra in heaven or something like that right now? Anyway, well, honey, I want to make sure people can connect with you. What is the best website they can connect with you on and reach out to take this to the next level?
Yeah, so it's Sisu, SISU, journey.com.
Okay.
And we're offering a free identity-based masterclass this month. So folks can sign up for that. And just reach out to me and let me know what's going on with you. I'd love to hear from you. And they can also apply to be on the podcast. They can listen to the, connect with the podcast episodes there. So that's the place.
And who do you have defined as your podcast guests?
Yeah, I'm really looking for anyone who ever feels like their story has been silenced, like they haven't had a voice to share their story. I really would love to get guests from all walks of life, all different, as much variety as possible. I'd love to, get some more, folks with disabilities and neurodivergent and just different places, people from all over the world. I've had one guest from South Africa. I've had several guests from Europe and Canada. And so, I'm just trying to help heal the curse of separateness by sharing stories and having us all have a joined healing experience.
Cool. I know this week here, my guests have been, my first one with this week was from Florida. Then my one yesterday was, she was from Northern Ireland. Amazing. And then I have you on the Pacific coast today.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't the internet great?
I know. I love it. And I think Northern Ireland, I was talking with her. I said, I think she was the first time I've ever had anybody from Northern Ireland. Over the past year, I've had Australia a few times, London a few times, and I've had Italy once. So it was interesting that I connect with people around the world now.
Yeah. I just booked someone in Germany. So it's really fun to hear from different people who have different experiences. One of my guests lives in Canada, and she grew up in the Netherlands, and so everyone has a whole different, your family dynamic and your culture and everything is all based off of that.
Yeah, and that's it. We all have a different story, and we've all had a different journey. So
yeah. And the more healthy you are, the more your lens is enhanced to like other people's experiences as well as your own.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, before you go, I've got a little game I like to play with everybody called This or That. You're willing to play, right?
Absolutely.
You're not scared of my game, are you?
I'm not scared.
I love it when people aren't scared and they're like, let's go.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So 9 questions. I'll give you 2 choices. You pick which one matters to you, or maybe we'll have a discussion about it. Maybe we won't. Let's find out. Number 1, Star Wars or Star Trek?
I don't care. I mean, I like them both okay, but neither of them like gets my juices going.
Oh, okay. Well, you know what I mean? I could have put in there something like along the lines of what was the comedy ones that were there was a comedy one with Tim Allen that was mocking Star Wars or Star Trek, and then there was a comedy one by Mel Brooks called Spaceballs.
Spaceballs.
Yeah.
I would choose Spaceballs.
I know. I love Spaceballs. I was on TV last night. I love Spaceballs. I love Mel Brooks movies. So then again, I'm the guy who's not easily offended by things. So I would really love the guy who would love Mel Brooks movies. So
I like the metaphor of the lightsaber. That's one thing I like, and the Force. So maybe I would say Star Wars, I guess.
Yeah. So no. So then then for you it's the Schwartz. Okay, let's move on. You're driving in your car. What do you listen to now more, podcasts or music?
Podcasts.
Yeah, I've gotten to be that way too. Podcasts are like an audio book. Yeah.
Yep, audiobooks as well.
It's just it's like I don't do very much driving. All right, it's like now I drive from here to Starbucks, get my coffee and back, and maybe once to dinner. Yep. But like it's very rare I take road trips or major trips anymore.
Totally.
Because of the pandemic. So yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, once in a while I'll notice, because I listen to things that you require your attention, right? Yeah. So once in a while I notice that I'm getting I'm getting stuck in my thoughts, or I need some thinking time, and then I'll change it to music. But for the most part, it's podcasts.
Yeah, I got into, but then recently he's changed it. I got into during the pandemic. Mike Rowe does a podcast called The Way I Heard It, and it was just stories, and I loved it. And now he changed it up at the end of 2020, and I don't like the new format, so I stopped listening. Yeah, it was kind of like Paul Harvey's. The rest of the story, if you remember Paul Harvey.
Yeah.
I know you're not old enough to remember Paul Harvey. Yeah. I barely remember him. How about this one here? Are you a dress up girl or are you a yoga pants girl?
Definitely yoga pants. Yeah.
Are you one? I mean, because we've only been on screen from here up. All right.
Right. But I have sweatpants from the waist down.
Yes, yeah. Like,
absolutely.
I've done a couple speeches wearing pajama bottoms just because I can say I did it.
Yeah, why not?
Why not? Yeah. All right. How about let's move on to some food products. Hamburger or taco?
Hamburger.
All right. Yeah.
I mean, it has to be good though.
Okay. What's your favorite hamburger? Who makes your favorite? What restaurant?
Ooh. Well, so I like the local burgers that do like really good meat. So there's like one I'm trying to remember the name of it. I guess it's like Dick's Primal Burger or something. It's in Portland.
Okay.
I have to have gluten-free buns, unfortunately, because I have celiac. So I have to find someone who is careful with that stuff. So I can't just go to your traditional. We do have a fast food restaurant called Burgerville here in the Northwest, which is they use better meat. It's a little bit more like an upscale
fast
food or whatever. And they do gluten-free buns. So
So mom and I love In-N-Out Burger, which is a California-based company.
Mm-hmm.
And mom and my wife, they usually get it wrapped in lettuce. They don't get it's a
Oh.
veg, right? Like wrapped in lettuce instead of buns.
Mm-hmm.
Because my mom, same thing. She's got to do gluten-free. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Yeah,
I'm a big, I don't know if you heard of Smash Burger. That's the biggest chain I know that I love it.
I
But
have.
yeah,
I
yeah.
have. I've never been.
Here in Dallas, we have one that actually has different kinds of meats. Like you can get buffalo meat, you can get
Oh, fun.
yeah, sometimes they have different other exotic meats they do for burgers,
Mm-hmm.
and we like to go there, but it's been on and off as to whether it's open during the pandemic. Since the pandemic
Right.
ended, they're not open on a full schedule yet. They only open like 2 days a week. So yeah,
Did the pandemic end though?
I don't know if it's really ever going to. Let's
I know
not
I
go
keep
into
saying that too.
let's not go into that
As
subject. Yeah.
as soon as I got my shots, it was over for me. And so I keep saying that, and people are like, wait, but it's not over really. So
Well, no, after I had COVID, it was over for me.
Mhm.
After I had it and survived it. All right. Because I realized, all right, for me, it was no big deal.
Mhm.
Now I have a friend that it was a big deal for. All right.
Mhm. Oh yeah.
And he ran out and got, as soon as the shot was available, he went and got it.
Yeah.
I just like, dude, what I went through for it. If I have to go through that again, that's nothing for me. And I realize I'm not
Sure.
everybody, but I'm like, for me, it's not worth getting a shot for. All
Yeah.
right. If I think like that, this week I've been sick, I stayed away from people, period. I just don't go near people, period. That's just how I handle it. So yeah. Let's move on. Coffee or tea?
Well, I like both, but I would say coffee is, I mean, my mom's from Finland.
Mhm.
We like our dark, thick
Espresso.
coffee.
It's the only way I have
Yeah.
mine is 2 shots of espresso. I normally have that question. I kind of go between coffee and tea, but you hinted something earlier that you gave up alcohol, because I usually ask beer or wine, bourbon or whiskey, stuff like that. But I took that one out and went with coffee this time.
Yeah, I love tea, but it just doesn't hit the same spot as coffee. So I'd have to go with coffee.
I make my own green tea lemonade every day.
Yum.
But I have a cup of coffee, like espresso, in the morning. Yeah.
Yeah.
So right now
Yeah,
I'm drinking ginger ale.
I've been trying to reduce my caffeine, so I'm mixing in some half and half, or sometimes I use mud water, which is another lower caffeine beverage.
Yeah. So, all right, let's move on to this one here. Another clothing option. Are you a heels person, or would you rather
Absolutely
wear
not.
boots?
No.
Boots?
Yeah, anything but heels.
Anything but heels. Okay.
Yeah. When I worked at Intel, there were some people who were like, we should invent smart heels. And I was like, they have those. They're called flats.
That's the quote of the day. Interesting. Well, how about this next one here? All right, you're going to the movies. Are you getting popcorn or candy?
Yes.
So Star Trek's, it's no. All right, Star Wars, Star Trek, you're not going to watch that. But when you do go, you're getting everything in the in the snack bar. Yeah.
I mean, either or I might sneak some in.
Yeah. I was always, I like the popcorn just to munch on it, but I like going to, we have somebody's down here. They're like dinner and movies. So I'll go and I'll watch the movie and I'll get wings while I'm eating, slap my hands all up with wings while I'm watching the movie.
Yeah, that's fun. Or once in a while, like it's pretty nostalgic just to eat some Milk Duds, right?
Yeah. Oh, Raisinets was always my favorite. So yeah. My last two are the controversial questions that I ask everyone. Next one here is, in your house, does the toilet paper go over on the roll or under?
Over the roll.
Okay. That's it. Just calmly over the roll.
Well, so sometimes the kids put it on under and then we just turn it nicely backwards, but we just fix it for them. But
okay. I love this question because I get you're like a calm person about it, but I get these people who are all love and rainbows and unicorns, and you ask that question and like fangs come out, like over, and I'm like, really? What happened to all love and unicorns there, buddy?
Well, I used to think it was a ridiculous question, to be honest with you, and then I started realizing that over is better. So.
And it's just
What-
like, it's a personal preference. It's not really like, you know what I mean? And like, especially the background you grew up in. Okay. You know, there's rules and there's like, there's rules not worth fighting over.
Exactly. And growing up in a way where you had to ask like 1-ply or 2-ply, like,
Yeah.
you know,
Let's not fight over the minor things in life, people.
exactly.
Yeah. My last one, and I know I ask it to the girls, but I've had the most interesting conversation with the guys up until yesterday's conversation with a girl. But anyway, boxers or briefs?
Oh, well, I mean, normally I wear briefs for myself or nothing. But sometimes I like wearing boxers if I'm wearing a skirt.
Yeah. I just was thinking there. Okay, first of all, she said she's wearing, you know, yoga pants, but on occasion she wears nothing. Anyway, no.
Yeah, how would you know?
You wouldn't. So no, I've actually had I had some of the guys I had that conversation with, and one guy we actually had a 20-minute conversation after the podcast, and it kept going as to what we like to wear and why. And
Yeah,
I'm like,
now there's no such thing as boxer briefs too, right? So
yeah, that's what I wear now, right? And like, I'm having this in-depth conversation on a business podcast with another man about why we like underwear and what it's best for. Only I could get away with that on my podcast.
Yeah.
You know, Helena, it's been so much fun having you on the show today. I want to make sure you repeat the website so they can get a hold of you one more time.
Absolutely.
All right.
It's Sisu Journey, SISUJOURNEY.com.
Thank you so much for being my guest today. I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule and coming here to talk to my people.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a joy and an honor.
Cool. To you guys, the listeners, I'm going to thank you guys for coming here today. Do me a favor, go check out that website, SISU journey.com. Really, coolest people on the planet, you got to admit. She's another one of our coolest ones. She's in the club now, guys. Go check her out. I'm Tim Gillette with the Tim Gillette Show, and I'll be back with another episode next week. In the meantime, go subscribe to both our YouTube channel as well as where you get your podcasts. Other than that, guys, have a great weekend. I'll